I'm going to explain to you how to punctuate quotes in your essays. First, let's go over some of the key rules for punctuating quotes. Key rules. Number 1, you introduce the quote in terms of punctuation. You introduce the quote with a comma, or a colon. Rule number 2, you close your quote in quotation marks. And these are quotation marks. Rule number 3, you put a space after the last quotation mark. So you have your end quotation mark, and then you have a space. Space. Rule number 4, after your space, you put the following: a parentheses, the line number, another parentheses, and a period. No spaces for the whole thing. So it looks like you have your end quote, space, parentheses, my number, end parentheses, period. That's it. That's all I have. So now let's look at an example. So here I have my topic sentence, and I introduce my quote with some context, and this is the quote that I have. This is the quote that I want to put in there. So right here, I have sort of a sentence to introduce my quote. Hirsch describes a heated moment in a basketball game. I'm giving contexts here, right here. Hirsch describes a heated moment in a basketball game. Because I'm introducing my quote with like a full sentence and a full idea, I can put a colon there to begin the quote. Remember, that was rule number 1, introduce with a comma or a colon. However, the more common way to introduce quotes would be to use a couple introductory words and then a comma. So for example, I could say Hirsch writes with a comma, or Hirsch states with a comma, or Hirsch describes with a comma, any of those words. Let's use writes. I'm going to say he because I used Hirsch a couple times in my earlier sentences. So he writes, and I have comma. Remember, rule number 2 is to close the quote in quotation marks. So I'm going to close off my quote in quotation marks. Now note, my last ending punctuation, this last period, is outside my quotation marks. In fact, I'm just going to delete it all together, and we'll put it back later. So I have the quote closed in quotation marks, and I have no ending punctuation inside the quotes. So I'll be wondering about these little slashes. They're to show line breaks. They're to show that the poem continued on to the next line, but in my paragraph I didn't want to do all the line breaks, so I just marked them with a slash. Anyway, so I did rule number 1, check, done. Did rule number 2, I closed it in quotation marks. Rule number 3, I need a space after the last quotation mark. Already done, I'll do it again. Space. Now I need parentheses, line number, parentheses, period. Parentheses, line number, parentheses, period. Parentheses, line number, parentheses, period. Here we go. Go back up to the quotation mark, I have my space, parentheses, let's say the line number is 25, and parentheses, period. I'm done. Now if I have more than one line number, which here I clearly do because of all of my slashes, it's actually 25 to 28, and I mark that with a hyphen. So I do parentheses, first line number, hyphen, last line number, parentheses, period. Again, there are no spaces in this entire little section here, no spaces. So that sums up how to properly punctuate the quote. Time for you to go back into your writing and ensure that all of your quotes are punctuated properly.